Welcome to another episode of Equity Mates, a podcast where we explore what's possible in the world of investing. If you've just joined the community for the very first time, a huge welcome. My name is Bryce, and as always, I'm joined by my equity buddy, Ren. How are you going?
I'm very good, Bryce. Very excited for this episode, as always, but how can you not be excited when Katy Perry's going to space?
I know. Well, that's what we're going to start with today, but it's not everything. We've got another Pimp My Portfolio with Dawes. And then we're going to close out with a segment to remind you and ourselves about why we invest. And it's not because money doesn't make us happy, because it turns out that it does. Just a reminder that this is the last week of our Basis Points launch here on Equity Mates. We've got 2 episodes to close out. If you've just joined us, Basis Points is our latest podcast here at Equity Mates Media. It's designed for financial advisors, but is accessible and free to everyone. We're talking to the best fund managers and best financial advisors in Australia on that show. All 6 episodes are available on the Basis Points feed and the Basis Points YouTube. We would also love it if you could sign up to the monthly email. There'll be a link in the show notes to do that. And Ren, the best part about it all is that if you are an advisor, all of the content is accredited by the FAAA, most of which is available for CPD points. The easiest way in Australia to tick off those CPD points. Asterisks, according to us.
Okay.
News and markets.
Well, Bryce, as I said earlier, Katy Perry's going to space.
Is she coming back?
Yeah, she is. And I promise this does have an investing angle to it.
Oh, everything does.
So the headline is that Lauren Sanchez, who is Jeff Bezos' fiance,
Yeah.
has organized an all-girls space trip.
Girls trip.
Yeah, which includes Katy Perry. That's their branding, not ours. That includes Katy Perry, the singer. Gayle King, CBS host, best friend of Oprah.
Yeah.
Aisha Bao, a former NASA rocket scientist. I was worried there would only be entertainers on this trip. Amanda Nguyen, bioastronautics research scientist. Say that 5 times fast. And Kieran Flynn, a film producer. So I guess the mission is to inspire future generations, and particularly future generations of women, to think about space more. And it's part of Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos's space rocket company's program to get more and more people above the Kármán line, which is like the line that divides the Earth's atmosphere and space.
Yeah.
But the thing for me is when Katy Perry's going to space, we're all not that far away.
I disagree.
Okay, interesting. Tell me why you disagree.
Well, I feel like it's still really expensive.
Yeah.
So it's like we are all still a long way from going to space. I think
Speak for yourself.
they're still trying to convince people. I don't think there's an overwhelming desire from a lot of people to go to space. I could be wrong. But rockets are blowing up left, right, and center.
Let me take each of those critiques individually. So, rockets are blowing up. We'll start there. The rockets that are blowing up are now these Falcon 9 super heavy rockets that are trying to get to Mars.
I get that, but that doesn't matter.
The rockets that are just taking Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit, or are taking people.
It's still perception, though.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying it's
people aren't like, oh no, it's fine because all the low orbit ones are sweet.
Well, okay, fair enough. And then the second thing, or the thing you said earlier, people don't want to go to space. You think people don't want to go to space?
I reckon.
Cost aside.
I reckon if you walked out onto the street today and asked people, do you genuinely want to go into space? I reckon you'd find 6 out of 10 say no.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, just wait until Katy Perry inspires a generation.
Is she going to sing fireworks on the way up?
Maybe, but that might be a bit on the nose because, as you're saying, rockets are blowing up. But look, I think it is a sign that whether Bryce wants to go to space or not.
Okay, let me put it to you this way. Why this trip out of any of the other previous high celebrity trips is this the catalyst for we're closer than we think?
I don't think there's been that many just blatant let's organize a celebrity trips.
But this isn't
Like,
a blatant let's organize. This is Bezos going, hey,
Bezos
we need
had
some
his
PR here.
Bezos had his trip,
Yeah.
which I think was pretty, like, people were pretty inspired by that to see that. Elon shot his Tesla into space.
Branson, he went up.
That is a stock I will never be
Virgin
investing in.
Galactic.
Yeah. Now I'm just looking up their share price. Down 90% in the past year. Virgin Galactic is a classic example.
Down 90% in the last year, but isn't it also down like 99% or something? Like
From
what's
its
the last
all-time
5
highs.
years? Yeah.
Yeah. Down 99.7%. Virgin Galactic is a classic example of the investing idiom. What do you call a stock that's down 90%?
A stock that can halve or something like that.
Yeah, a stock that fell 80% and then halved.
Yeah.
100%. It's trading at $3, so it could still fall further. I think that space tourism isn't far away. That's my view, and it will start with the ultra rich.
Define space tourism though, because it's happening. I guess it's here. If Katy Perry's doing a girls' trip.
Well, yeah, but she didn't. I don't think she would have bought the ticket.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the ability for rich people to buy tickets to go to space, even not, is not far away. It's not just me that thinks that. I think we're seeing more and more evidence that, particularly NASA thinks that. So the International Space Station is retiring in 2030, and they're not going to replace it with a government space station. Instead, NASA is trying to stimulate a commercial space sector, and they want private space stations up there. And 2030 is 5 years away?
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, Elon actually wants to retire the ISS earlier.
Yes, he wants to get it.
Separate conversation.
Look, so I'm just looking now. You can buy tickets now.
Oh, can you?
Yeah. So there's suborbital flights. So Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin.
What do they go for?
Brief experience of weightlessness. Between 250,000 and 450,000. However, orbital flights. So you can visit the International Space Station through SpaceX or Boeing, 55 to 60 mil.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then lunar missions, SpaceX plan to offer commercial flights around the moon, but these are expected to cost hundreds of millions.
Yeah, but I think anything where it's like expected to, especially from a company that Elon owns, like whether you love him or you hate him, he certainly is aggressive with his forecasts.
Wow, so you can go to the International Space Station. There you go.
Imagine if you're a astronaut or a cosmonaut on the International Space Station, and then all of a sudden you've just got a tourist that's paid $60 million who's just in your space.
So it's 55 to 60. Yeah, I know, you'd be so pissed off. Once you then get on the International Space Station, a month-long stay on board is 1.4 mil.
Well, I mean, if you're paying 60 mil to get there, 1.4 is nothing. Also, I wouldn't be wanting to go on a Boeing trip.
No way! No way.
We said there would be an investing angle here, so let's get to that. Because I think whether or not you're bullish on the space sector emerging anytime soon and people's desire to go to space, I think there's no doubt that there's huge value being created here in some of these companies. I mean, we start with the rocket companies themselves, Blue Origin and SpaceX, well discussed. SpaceX last raised a $350 billion valuation.
Yeah.
Or they last bought shares back from early investors
sale,
and employees.
Yeah.
To put that in context, if they were a publicly listed company, they would be the 27th largest publicly listed company globally. They would sit between LVMH and Home Depot. So like massive.
I don't think we'll see them list.
SpaceX?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Again, like, why do they need to? I reckon Elon loves having his private companies.
I think so. Well, I mean, he gets booted from every company that he runs eventually. Zip2 he got booted from. Yeah. PayPal he got booted from.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. But Axiom Space is another one. So they're building a private space station, a space hotel, and I think there's going to be some like commercial, an office park or whatever you call the space equivalent. Okay. Yeah. A business part of the space station. Vast is they're building part of the replacement or a replacement for the International Space Station. Voyager Space is another one that gets a lot of buzz. The problem is a lot of these aren't listed.
Yeah. Are these going to be commercially viable? Like the costs involved in these things, it's like...
Well, I mean, SpaceX is commercially viable.
Yeah, SpaceX is commercially viable, but that I think the majority of SpaceX at the moment is not public facing. Let's take people on joy flights.
Yeah, no. Well, it's getting Starlink low Earth orbit satellites up.
Yeah, like I'd be more comfortable investing in SpaceX than I would be Virgin
Axiom
Galactic.
Space.
Yeah, well, Axiom Space, that's for sure.
Yeah. So there are ETFs that track the sector and the publicly listed stocks that are trying to play in the space sector. Van Eck have one, their space ETF, ticker Jedi. Nice, yeah. So I was having a look at it. Performance-wise, it's only been listed, it hasn't been listed for too long, but past year, 64%.
Wow.
The index that it tracks over the past 5 years, 14.8%.
Wow.
So, there is some growth there. But then I was looking at the underlying companies, didn't recognize any of them. AST Space Mobile, Hanwha Aerospace, EchoStar, Iridium Communications, Rocket Lab USA, Winston Newab Corp, SES, Intuitive Machines, I have heard of, Sky Perfect, JSAT Holdings, Planet Labs. So I guess my point is, Katy Perry's going to space. The commercial space race is starting, whether Bryce likes it or not. And there are companies out there that are trying to play in that space.
Absolutely, yeah. Although I feel like a lot of those companies there are probably just involved in picks and shovels for making things for SpaceX and the likes. So I don't know if... I think there's a distinction between the commercial side and just general space. But anyway...
Well, just let me say one last thing about Intuitive Machines. I'm not sure if you clocked the news. It was maybe a couple of weeks ago now that we got the first and second private company to land a lunar rover on the moon. Intuitive Machines was one of them, and then there was another company I can't remember. But that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That obviously not a person, just a rover.
A thing.
Yeah. But still, private companies are doing things.
Yeah, they are doing things.
And in that insightful comment, that's where we'll leave the news.
Yes. Anyway, if you want to keep up with more headlines from around the world, make sure you subscribe to our daily newsletter. Every morning, 6 a.m., Monday to Friday, we'll send you a summary of the most important headlines that we think make markets move, or that we think are important. There'll be a link in the show notes or description to sign up. It's also a podcast called Headlines by Equity Mates. You'll find it wherever you're listening to your podcast now.
This is Pimp My Portfolio. Pimp My Portfolio.
This segment is where we get a listener to submit their portfolio so our expert can review it and hopefully give them some tips to improve. And in the studio today, we have our expert, Adam Dawes. Welcome.
Don't know about expert, but thank you very much.
Hold on, that undermines the whole...
Sorry. I'm talking about myself.
And on the phone, we have Equity Mates community member, Ryan. Ryan, how are you?
Hey all, how are we going?
Very well. Thanks for submitting your portfolio. Keen to get stuck in today. So, Ren, do you want to take us through it?
Yeah, let's do it. So Ryan's got a core and satellite approach. 4 ETFs make up 70% of his portfolio. They're Fidelity Global Emerging Markets, BetaShares Global Cybersecurity, Hack, BetaShares Quality Leaders, and then BetaShares Global Robotics and AI. So that's 70% of the portfolio. Then we've got 5 individual stocks making up the remaining 30%. Woolies, Macquarie, Magellan, Tesla, and Endeavour. So, Dawesy,
Right.
we'd like to start with a bit of a nickname. Have you got one here?
Not that this portfolio needs saving, but I'm going to call it Saving Private Ryan. Okay? There is a couple of things that we need to look at in this portfolio.
Okay,
Nice.
Well, Ryan, before we get into how Dawesy can save your portfolio, do you want to tell us a little bit about how it came to be?
Yeah, so long-time listener of Equity Mate. Wanted to look at diversifying, learnt about ETFs a bit more, and great opportunity there. So I just expanded out of the sort of individual stocks into more ETFs and put in place a proper strategy around, DCAing into that, and just kind of have grown it from there.
All right. Well, Dawesy, where do you want to start?
Well, look, let's start with the ETFs first, and then we'll talk about the individual stocks. You've got a couple of thematic ETFs in there, and you're quite interested in cybersecurity and robotics. Is that fair to say, or are you just looking at that as a theme that's running through the market?
Yeah, theme that's running through the market, and more that tech play as well.
Yeah, okay, no, that's fine. Be a little bit careful with the thematics. I think that these things can change pretty quickly. Look, I think robotics and cybersecurity are definitely here to stay. It's just how businesses can make money out of that, and certainly Hack has done very, very well. So you should be okay with that. I do like the global emerging markets ETF as well. But what I would say is that you've got some good sort of quality leaders. You've got the sort of the big cap space. I'd look for an ETF that has some small caps, global small caps inside it as well, just to sort of balance out. You've got the big stuff there, but maybe you're looking at something that has a small cap bent inside of it, and I think that's something where you could do really well with, just to round out that 4 ETFs that you've got at the moment.
Yeah, okay.
What about just some maybe more vanilla but market cap weighted indexes?
Yeah, so something like the IVV, fantastic, or you could look at there's a Qual, which you've got the quality leaders, but then there's a QSML, which is a quality small cap leaders, or there's DGSM, which is a global smalls as well. So those kinds of things, I think you could really look at that. But then you're right, looking at some of those indexes, you don't have an Australian ETF there. So there's plenty of those out there, which low MERs, it's all a race to the bottom at the moment with those guys. So you can pick one that's got a cheap MER, and you can get the ASX 200 or the ASX 300, because that leads nicely into the individual stocks. You owned Woolies, and then you got some Endeavour from that. Is that how you got the Endeavour shares?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, got spun out. Okay, and Tesla. Why are we owning Tesla? Do you drive one?
I do drive one, yeah.
Well, there you're putting money where your mouth is. So, okay,
yeah. That's it. Well, I just, he's losing part of his legacy now, but really liked what Elon was doing.
Yeah,
and it's a pretty volatile stock, but I've done well so far.
Yeah. Oh, look, I think you're right. There's too much social media stuff, and maybe rightly so, about what's going on. EV sales around the world have fallen or have stagnated a lot. So even before he sort of came out and did all those weird things, EV sales were slowing. So it's something to potentially be mindful of going forward. Yeah. But I think if you drive the car, then you like it, and so it's not a bad investment for you as well. And then the Macquarie and the Magellan sort of, Macquarie's fantastic business and great stock. What's the plan with the Magellan?
Yeah, partly wanted to pick your brains on that one. I've always had the philosophy of, just hold. Either it'll never probably come back to what it was, or if it does, it'll take a very long time. And it's eroding my opportunity of being able to sort of just sell off and go into something that will return. Maybe it's the stubbornness in me that's just holding it. So yeah, keen to pick your brains.
Yeah, I mean, you can get emotionally attached to certain things and emotionally attached to stocks, and certainly a lot of people do. But you've got to basically look at, for fund managers, you've got to look at inflows. And if there's outflows happening, then you should really be moving away from it. If there's inflows into a managed fund, then that's a real positive, and that's where you should be looking. So do some research. They do it every month. They give you the inflows and the outflows. Just take a look at that over the last coming couple of months, and then you should be able to make your own decision on that one.
I think something to think about, Ryan, as well, when it comes to these stocks, and something that I took a while to really comprehend, because I was the same, would just hold on to things until they effectively became so meaningless in the portfolio. But there's always an opportunity to do something else with the money that's sitting there, and I think you kind of just touched on it there. And so emotionally attaching yourself to it, thinking that, it might get back to where it was, like it may never, and you've just wasted a significant amount of time
and opportunity where that could be sitting somewhere else. So
I think, to Adam's point, have a look at Magellan, have a look at the flow of funds, and you might be able to make a decision.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
The takeaway for me here, Adam, it really is that there's a good sort of satellite overall, but perhaps some more index-based long-term bottom draw ETFs to kind of even out the thematics there, because as we talk on the show a lot, these thematic ETFs are not something that you want to be putting in the bottom drawer and just sitting there.
With some of these thematic ETFs, you almost think of them as individual stocks in the way that you just keep checking them and what's the sentiment around the theme and is the thesis still there? Because we've seen a few thematic ETFs or a few themes over our time turn pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Lithium.
Marijuana.
Marijuana,
That was a big one.
That's a deep cut. Yeah. And that's not to say they won't run for a long time. You know, like I own Hack and it's been great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, for the whole time we've been doing this podcast. But just be mindful that if the sentiment turns, the ETFs turn as well.
Yeah, no, I was very conscious of that, but I think you touched on it before. Like the ETFs that I've got, they're pretty strong themes at the moment and got a lot of runway in my view.
Yeah. Well, high conviction.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, love it. Well, Ryan, thank you for joining us. Did you have any final questions for Dawesy while you've got him?
Can we come up with another nickname?
No.
You'll have to resubmit your portfolio once you made the changes.
I'll make some adjustments and we'll go again.
Yes,
nice.
nice. We'll keep us posted. But Ryan, thank you so much for submitting, and we really do appreciate you listening to the show and taking the time today to come on and share your portfolio with the rest of the community. So thank you so much.
Thanks, gents. It was great.
Thanks, Ryan.
And thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
If you would like to submit to Pimp My Portfolio, head to equitymates.com/contact. All the information is there. And if you would like to speak to Adam and the team or any of our other advisors, head to equitymates.com/advice. But that's not all. Adam is doing a professional portfolio health check where you'll get a personalized investment portfolio review, expert guidance that is aligned with your goals and risk profile, and a tailored statement of advice, all for $750 plus GST. So head to equitymates.com/advice if you're interested. Money doesn't make you happy, but it does give you control, and it turns out that makes you happy. So Ren, there's some science around the relationship between happiness and money.
Yes, yeah. The idea that money doesn't buy happiness is a path well trodden. But I think one of the key reasons that we invest is it gives us choice. And we wanted to share some research from a University of Michigan psychologist that talks about just like how important having that choice and having that control in your life is. So Angus Campbell is a psychologist. He studied happiness, and he found that it's almost impossible to group those that were happiest by any demographic factor. So income levels, it wasn't a determinative of happiness. So money doesn't buy happiness. Education, location, age, geography, none of these were great predictors of happiness. But the interesting thing that Campbell found, which may not be surprising, but I think is worth stressing, is, quote, having a strong sense of controlling one's life is a more dependable predictor of positive feelings of well-being than any of the objective conditions of life we have considered. And for us, that is why we invest. Having that feeling of control.
That's why everyone's happy on holidays, because you just get to do what you want.
Yeah.
Like you have complete freedom, complete control. But yes, you're right. Our whole purpose for investing is so that we can hopefully build enough of a financial foundation that allows us to do the things that we want in life.
Yeah, and so when we think about why we invest and why we got started young and why we want to be really consistent with it, it isn't to, have the yacht, it isn't to retire early, but it's to have choices over what we do in our life. It's, choice over what job we take, or what job we leave. It's about, choice and control over when we start a family, where we start a family, and where we travel with that family, where we live with that family. When we want to retire, we have control and choice over that. And there's no doubt that our lives will be hit by uncertainty and chaos and randomness, and financial shocks happen and life happens. But having that, that investment portfolio ticking over gives you more control and gives you more choice in those situations. And I think whatever it is, it's just important to remind ourselves is that's why we invest.
That is why we invest.
That's why we think everyone should start investing, no matter how small. Get started early. Build that portfolio. Build that control over your life.
If you've just started investing or you've just joined us, I think the best resource available, other than this podcast, of course, and the Get Started Investing podcast, is our book, Don't Stress, Just Invest. It shows you 4 easy steps that you can take to set up a portfolio that over a long period of time should hopefully or will deliver you a financial foundation that should give you some sort of control over your life down the track. So make sure you buy that for a friend or buy it for yourself if you're looking to get started. A reminder to check out tomorrow's episode from Basis Points live on the Equity Mates feed, also available on the Basis Points feed. We're talking about the golden age of financial advice with Andrew Hewison. But Ren, we'll pick it up next episode.
Sounds good.
I will say this about investing. Everything you do learn is cumulative. What I learned at 20 is useful.
Equity.